So I've been pretty excited to watch True Detective Night Country. I guess True Detective Season 4 you could call it. Though, by the time I was done with Episode 1, I was sort of wishing they called it just Night Country and not True Detective at all. I guess this is primarily because it seems that the season so far is leaning really heavily into the supernatural. There will be spoilers in this discussion of the season premiere. I've only watched the season premiere. I have screeners for the whole season, but I got them pretty late. And I'm debating whether or not to watch ahead or just watch weekly with everybody else. It's kind of... with a lot of shows where I've had screeners, like House of the Dragon and Succession and some other stuff, I've had some, advanced screeners sometimes for multiple episodes in the season, but sometimes I enjoy not knowing what's coming each week, because if I write an episode review or I make a video review of the episode, not having the knowledge of what's coming lets me write a review that's more connected to what audiences are experiencing, rather than having that foreknowledge which might change what I write or what I say in a video. So I'm not sure if I'll watch ahead or if I'll just do this just watch a day ahead like normal. Anyways. Housekeeping out of this aside, I didn't really like the first episode of Night Country. For so many reasons. I mentioned the supernatural a minute ago. I think I would have been much more receptive to this episode if it hadn't been called True Detective. Simply because if this had been a new mystery, a new series, not grounded in reality like the rest of True Detective, if this had been a series that was just, open to whatever, then I could look at that supernatural stuff and think, okay, cool, this is, they're playing with other stories like The Thing. You see the copy of the movie The Thing in the Arctic base, and that sort of horror supernatural stuff. That could have been a really interesting new show, but this is tagged True Detective Night Country, so I'm assuming it's based in realism like the first 3 seasons. I know, yes, season 1 had supernatural elements, but those are actually explained through, Rust's hallucinations, through sort of the cryptic voodoo stuff that we see. It's not magic, but it makes you wonder, it makes you think, is there something in some sort of black magic or some sort of supernatural darkness occurring? Another show that I enjoyed the first season of, but not the second, was Yellow Jackets. That show has a lot of creepy supernatural stuff in it, and you do wonder consistently throughout, is this supernatural? Is this just, part of their memory of what happened? Is it some kind of hallucination that happened? You wonder, and I don't know where that show's going to take it. It was total mess in the second season, but at least you had that question, kind of like in season 1 of True Detective. Is there something supernatural going on? In Night Country, it feels like they're just throwing the supernatural at you so hard. There's all these several characters at some point either hear or say, "She's awake." There's a polar bear in the road with his eye gouged out in the shape of a star, which is the same way that this missing girl was killed, with these star-shaped knife wounds. There's the opening scene of really bad CGI caribou running off a cliff, as though possessed by some sudden madness during the last sunset of the year, and so on and so forth. There's all this supernatural stuff, and I don't love that, because, either they have to explain it, like some poison in the air, something making everybody go crazy, but either they have to do that, and then some of these weird coincidences, like the "she's awake" stuff, don't really make sense if this is just hallucinatory, or it's actually supernatural, in which case it's not really True Detective anymore. And really, there's a lot of other things in this first episode that don't feel very True Detective-y, and other things that that seem like they're trying too hard, rather than sort of setting their own show up or make blazing their own trail. They're trying too hard to call back to things like the spiral imagery from season 1. There's fan theories that the ghost of Travis, the guy that does the weird Fortnite dance and leads Rose, the old lady Rose, to the bodies at the end of the episode, that he's Rust Cole's father. And there's clearly attempts being made to sort of tie this to the first season and to the show, broadly speaking. And also, I think there's an attempt to sort of tonally try to set that up that's really, really failing to do that. So Jodie Foster, it's great to see her again. She hasn't been in anything in a long time. She plays a Detective Danvers, and her character is really grouchy. I guess that's the best way to put it. She seems like a smart enough person. I think Foster actually described herself as a Karen in this. Her character is a Karen in this. She's not very likable. The indigenous detective, whose name I'm going to butcher, Navarro. I keep getting the actress Callie Reese and Evangeline Navarro. I keep getting those names mixed up, but Navarro. She's also pretty grouchy. The two main detectives, in other words, they sort of are like one another, and that's I don't know, that to me that's kind of the biggest problem here. Like, they're trying to set up this buddy cop, or friend and foe dynamic that was present in the first season and to some degree in the second season, and the third season. Third season has that dynamic also, but what makes the previous seasons of True Detective's main characters work, especially season 1, is just their really different personalities. Like, Rust and Marty are so different. Marty is like one of the good old boys. He believes in Jesus and he cheats on his wife, and it's just kind of like he's just this guy going through life without thinking, really. Whereas Rust is like depressive, all fucked up from drug abuse when he was undercover. He's super, super thoughtful and almost to a fault, philosophical. They are so different, so very, very different, that their interactions are often funny, fascinating, and their ability, their character arcs as they are pushed apart and come back together. That's a really great trajectory that we follow throughout season 1. This season, they're trying to shove a lot of story and a lot of history between these characters into the first episode, and it's hard to follow, and the characters are just too similar. Even though they're culturally and age-wise they're very different, they're just similar personalities. Abrasive, rough around the edges, hard to like or care about. Maybe that changes. Maybe all of these complaints I have change as the season moves on, but right now this is where I'm at with it. The season 4 premiere was just so messy. There's so much going on. There's so much there's so many characters we meet. There's so many little threads we have to pick up and try to weave together on our own. There's this backstory of this native activist who is killed, and maybe she's connected to these men who go missing. The men who go missing are almost treated like an afterthought for most of the episode. Like, the 8 men have disappeared, likely to be dead, but there's not really any sort of sense of urgency. I don't know. It's sort of weird. They seem to start investigating this old cold case right away instead. Which, I mean, I get trying to link them to help the investigation, overall. But it is a weird, the sense of momentum in the first episode is all over the place. There's some really random scenes with characters and side characters and side characters. Navarro meets with, I guess, the brother of the missing girl. Then she has a booty call, which, if the genders were reversed in that scene, would be super problematic. And then there's her sister that we meet. We've got this whole little subplot with Danvers and her, I guess, stepdaughter, maybe? Adoptive daughter? I'm not really quite sure. I think stepdaughter, though. And her, girlfriend, they filmed a scene of them having sex together, and then she's getting in trouble. Then there's a drunk driver that almost hits them in the car, and we learn about her, and we learn about Danvers' protege, a young police officer, white police officer, who I can't remember his name right now. Pryor is the last name, and his dad is a police officer. And there's so many characters. You see, I can't even follow it. There's just so much going on, and all these characters have stories that we have to get to know right away. It feels very rushed, and it feels sort of slow at the same time, and it's weird, messy, sloppy pacing. And there's lots of really weird, bad CGI, like the caribou at the beginning, which are extremely distracting. You don't need CGI really in a show like this. I don't understand it. The interesting stuff at the Arctic base where the scientists work, I hope we get more, like, I don't know, flashback scenes or something, because it's just like one scene and then they're gone. We have no time to get to know any of these characters or care about them or understand them or really anything. And I get a very distinct sort of feeling that this is Wind River all over again. That these scientists were responsible for something very bad. Maybe this missing girl. No, she's not missing, but murdered girl. Maybe there's others missing, which is very Wind River, like the plot of Wind River. I get a lot of Yellow Jackets vibes. I mentioned Yellow Jackets earlier. There's the soundtrack in Yellow Jackets had all this like women chanting, like in very dread-inspiring ways, and had this very creepy feel in season 1. And there's that sort of the female chanting in this episode of Night Country. Very, very similar sound. There's also the overuse of needle drops and like really, on the nose covers of pop songs and rock songs and whatnot. How the title sequence, the opening credits, is a Billie Eilish song, and they just feel nothing like True Detective. So again, this show I think right now is suffering for its link to True Detective. And maybe it wasn't even initially supposed to be True Detective. Maybe they were coming up with one thing and then they're like, let's add True Detective to this to make it more popular, more people will care to see it. But in a lot of ways, it's suffering by comparison rather than benefiting from it. I'm totally blown away by all the reviews I've seen saying it's just as good as season 1, or it's better than season 1, or whatever, all this stuff, because it's not. It's nowhere near as good as season 1, and I can't imagine that in the next 5 episodes, somehow I'll change my mind on that. Even if I start liking it better than I do now, there's no way that with an opening like this, I'm going to like it as much as season 1, because season 1 was good from the very beginning. Matthew McConaughey was fantastic. Woody Harrelson did a great job, but McConaughey was fantastic in that season, and the writing was just great, and it was such a thought-provoking season, and it was exciting, intense, and new. And this show so far, 1 episode in, it just feels cheap compared to it. The cinematography, the color grading, everything about it feels less real. There's a very lived-in feeling in this sort of Southern Gothic expanses of swamp and bayou in season 1. All these old like huts and buildings and abandoned schools and abandoned churches, and there's just this great moody ambiance throughout that whole season. It's very dark. It's very grimy. It's very overgrown. There's this sense that like the swamp is sort of coming up to drag everything under, and that these people that live there are beaten down and hardened and withered, and that there's a sickness, almost a spiritual sickness, hanging over everything. And that's really captured in the cinematography and in the way that it's lit, and in all the ways that that season was made. It just is evocative as hell. And this season feels, there's too much CGI. The colors are all off. It just doesn't feel right. And that's a hard thing to sort of put into words. But that's, the feeling I get where I'm just watching it. And I'm like, yeah, it's a cool idea. This idea of, Ennis, Alaska, shrouded in darkness for over 2 months. So we never see daylight at all. Psychologically, what a weird thing to go through. And then to have a murder mystery in that setting. Again, that's a great idea. The execution so far, at least, feels really lackluster. So that's where I'm at with Night Country. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a few things. But for now, I'm disappointed. I know some people are like, oh, it's woke, it's too woke, oh, it's too female driven or whatever. I don't think that's the problem with it. I think that far more than having the female detectives or having this be like a girl power moment or whatever, I think the problem is that the female detectives are both too much alike, and we need contrast. In my written review, I brought up The Killing. There was a female and a male detective as partners in that, and the thing that made it work beyond just their genders was simply that they were such wildly different people. Again, just like in True Detective season 1, the detectives in The Killing, one's very serious, very sort of withdrawn and reserved. The other is almost like immature in a way. You should watch that show. It's good. But here they're both just kind of grouchy and unlikable and bossy. So I don't know. We'll see. I hope that especially there, like that these characters kind of are fleshed out and we get to know them better and their personalities diverge a little bit. But right now, I'm still going to watch. I still hope this is a fascinating mystery that we get to see unfold. I don't know. My hopes, my expectations have really fallen off a cliff after episode 1. So let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Peace.